The last time I was on this program, Dawn and I were chatting about the death of Skype. And back then we were trying to get our company, we were trying to get a vendor on Teams, and it was a challenge because they were using Skype. Now, as a guy who's recently become a free agent, I can tell you which one is a lot easier to set up on your home computer.
My mom learned Zoom during the pandemic because that's the only way she could talk to her grandkids. So,
and Zoom is the noun.
Yeah, exactly.
You were already using Skype as a verb. Do you know how big of a milestone that is? When the company name actually becomes the word. Like, people don't search for things, they Google them. You were Skyping. That's the whole ball game, baby.
More and more acquisitions, taking a look at the top UC platforms and a practical use for AI in AV, at least maybe. All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 726, recorded Friday, July 18th, 2025. The Four Horsemen of UC. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the greatest EV news and information we have gathered. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. We have got a host of ownership changes, a couple of new technologies, and a great group of roundtable discussions. First and foremost, the first of the acquisitions. This one's in Europe. Econocom has officially become the largest AV integrator in Europe on the continent, with revenue now above 30 million euros. According to a recent story from AV Magazine, Econocom has achieved this with 4 recent acquisitions that added 60 million euros to the bottom line, including their strategic buyout of Biz Econocom. Milestone pushes them past other top contenders and signals a broader trend of consolidation. We all know that. We've seen that, as well as scale-focused integration strategies in the European market. Staying in Europe, DCC Technology has sold its Exertis division in the UK and Ireland to private equity firm Aurelius. Now, the deal is valued at over 160 million pounds and is expected to reshape the channel and the landscape in the region. Now, Aurelius says it plans to focus on quote-unquote long-term growth and operational agility, something to watch closely, honestly, as the distribution channel plays a really, really important part, especially in the European AV market. Sort of kind of back and forth, but Christie is selling off their Pandora Box product line. Now, everybody, if you've done live events, if you've done any sort of projection mapping, something to do with really high-end, really intricate video processing or graphics processing, you know Pandora's Box. The buyer is 21st Century AV, a relatively new player in immersive and live event space. They actually formed by former Christie personnel. This move allows Christie to focus on its core projection and display technologies while giving Pandora's Box a new runway, maybe a little bit of breath of fresh air, a new life under new management, but new management that knows them really, really well. Google has announced a new AI-powered business calling feature using Gemini 2.5. This might actually make me use Gemini 2. Feature as part of Google's AI mode allows AI to make, answer, and summarize phone calls. That means I may never have to get on the phone again. I might be on board with this. Even pulling real-time data during the call. So this has really, really major implications in call centers, unified communications, sales, service, support, all over the thing, all over the place. You have sales, right? So keep an eye on that. And lastly, from the intersection of accessibility and technology innovation, there's a new AI smart glasses with real-time subtitle and translation capabilities. Now, this was developed by Dutch collective Envision. The glasses can transcribe and translate spoken word in real time, displayed directly on your glasses. The initial rollout really focuses on live events, theater performances, but you could see a place where, well, if it's live, right, it's somebody talking live in front of you, certainly this can make its way into the classroom, certainly it can make its way into the boardroom. You may even see laws being passed similar to assisted living assisted translation, assisted transcription, something like that. So keep an eye on that. The Dutch collective Envision. That is your news for the week. Stick around where we will talk about the software side of AV and debate the top video platforms in the UC market. This is AV Week.
Hey listeners, it's your AV sneakerhead, Jennifer Weaver. Listen to AV Career Masterminds, where I chat all things job related in the audio-visual industry. You can find AV Career Masterminds where you subscribe to podcasts.
All right, we are back with us to discuss a couple items. Is first and foremost, Dawn Mead. You know her as AV Dawn. How are you, ma'am?
Very good, thanks. Thanks for having me as usual, Tim.
Absolutely. Also with us is my buddy, Mr. Craig Durr from Collab Collective. How are you, sir?
Good. How's everyone doing?
Fantastic. And last but not least, an old friend who we're calling him a free agent now, Mr. Garth Lobin from Southern California. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Tim, and hello to everybody.
Good to see you, bud. Good to see you. All right. We got a couple things going this week. First and foremost, old friend of mine, old friend of the show, old friend of AVNation, Scott Tyner. He's a AV professional and manager, director, I think, up at Bates College in beautiful Maine. He also writes for Rave Publications, and he wrote in Rave Pubs about the new Jetbuilt Jetbot. Now, really side note, Steph, Beckett, and I got together. We put together a list of 10 really great products that we found at InfoComm 2025. The Jetbot happened to be one of them. But Jetbot is Jetbuilt's AI-powered service tool. It lets end users, you scan a QR code and on any piece of AV gear in that room, and you can receive automated help. Now, the automated part is where AI comes into the picture here. This system pulls information from manuals, from project documentation. Obviously, your integrator has to be a part of this and put in the project documentation. But it can provide context and give you a first level of support. Tyner says in the article, he sees a future where tools like this can help develop AV as a service, as well as immediate first level support systems. Now, Scott does go on to say that first level support systems, you're going to have an SLA, you're going to have a service level agreement like nobody's business, because that one is going to have to be detailed. Like, okay, level 1's AI, and I'm okay with that, but level 2, level 3, and what is the typical response time? Don, I am going to bring you on this because you are the end user on this call. Bottom line, how do we feel about AI being at least our first level service tech or troubleshooter?
Honestly, I read this and I hadn't even heard of such a thing because I didn't get to go to InfoComm. I think it's a brilliant idea, especially for places like universities and colleges where you have a lot of classrooms, a lot of sites, a lot of buildings, and maybe not the biggest staff. And for places like mine, whether in the corporate open space or in a more restricted space like mine, where again, you have lots of sites, lots of buildings, lots of rooms, and maybe a much, much smaller, sometimes smaller than it needs to be, support staff. Having a platform like a monitoring and maintenance thing, whether internal or external to your company, to your campus, to your organization, is one great way of solving this conundrum. But if we were able to have, say, the monitoring and maintenance that my team looks at across our estate, and something where we could just have our end users scan a QR code and get a couple of steps of basic troubleshooting that then immediately says, do these things, that didn't work, call someone, or we automatically will call since that didn't work.
Yeah.
Something like that would be fantastic. The company I work with is large. I can't tell you where. I can't tell you what we do. Suffice to say, a lot of my coworkers are very intelligent people with very intelligent engineering and technology backgrounds, way beyond anything most of us would be able to deal with. But, and I will say this, they love to tinker. And as soon as they get to tinkering, man, forget about it if you don't have a tech nearby. So I would love something like this that would just let them do their couple of steps of troubleshooting, and then before they get back, they're pulling wires and rewiring things and doing what they think is best, and therefore screwing it all up and costing us a lot of time and money. they could just scan step 1, step 2, step 3, automatically email the team, and help would be on the way. I love that idea. Hope they have a commercial version that I could purchase independent of the rest of the software.
Tim, if I can share a thought on that, the contact center space is probably a great space to look at and learn and see what's taking place there, in that they're using these type of AI-driven self-help features for end users. Where's my order? What's taking place? Now, they are doing well in terms of early adoption of AI features. One, because it is a really easy place to measure results. Customer stat improves, call time, hold time is shortened as well too. So it's not a new model. In some ways, it's being applied to a new area, I think, which makes it interesting because it can learn. It doesn't have to fall on its face on its own. It can learn from some of these trials and tribulations that some of these CCaaS providers might be providing as well. At least if you look at it from the service as a service idea, service help desk service.
Dura, really quickly, CCaaS, because I don't even know what that one means.
Contact center as a service.
Thank you.
Or these days, they are trying to always rebrand themselves as customer experience as a service, omni-channel, more channels and stuff. But
this customer experience as a service, that's spelled cease. You can't use that. That's stupid.
Or CX as I don't know. We can create our own new acronyms and confuse everyone.
There was a long conversation this week on LinkedIn about my belief, and this was drilled into me by an old buddy, Bradford Ben. If you use an acronym, you gotta define it, right? And especially when the host doesn't know what it is. So, Garth, take a look at this from an AV standpoint, and we've talked about AI. Well, just as a society for 3 years now. I made the comment that I thought that going into ISC 2025, that AI was going to be slapped on everything as a marketing tool, and it wasn't going to be real. I said this 6 months ago. I will say it again. I was absolutely wrong. It was there. It was not slapped on as marketing, at least not overtly. I mean, I'm sure there was a couple of people, but I did not overtly see them. This is one of those areas, though, that is leveraging AI and leveraging some of the tools that we have. What are the benefits that Don was talking about, but what are some of the drawbacks of going down this road and implementing something where not only is it AI, that's one side, but from a manufacturer standpoint and as well as an integrator standpoint, now we are asking our customers to be our hands and feet for that first line of support?
Well, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. When you look at the positive aspect of this, clearly Paul Dexter and his scientists over there have spent a lot of time with some sort of a large language model of some kind over there, or agents. And it's actually brilliant when you look at their system because they already have a very expansive customer portal arrangement over there where it's actually kind of a CMS, a content management service platform, where they're dumping all the manuals in, they're dumping all of the specs in, they're dumping all the wiring diagrams so that the customer can be a part of the sale and go in and see everything that's going to go into their system and then ultimately what's in their system. So that aspect is cool because if the AI has been trained on all of the products that an integrator using Jetbuilt will be using for that installation, then all the information is there for the customer as well. And of course, that LLM has been trained to provide, quality answers. What's the downside? The downside of various large language models and the GPTs that we're using, ChatGPT and some of the rest, Claude and all the rest, you have a problem in which hallucinations can occur. Okay, so any of us who have plugged into a GPT and have asked it to analyze something, look at the differences between these two customers, look at the difference between these two products, these two companies, it's prone to hallucination, and only the humans can really analyze this thing and figure out if it's accurate or not. So that's one challenge that we have. So this tool has to be very careful in that it's not going to provide some sort of a hallucinated answer. And I'm sure they're wringing the heck out of this to make sure that that's not happening. The other downside, since you asked, is trust. There's a lot of companies and a lot of people who don't trust AI They don't want to put anything into AI that may get out into the environment, whether it's their company's proprietary information, whether it's their company's proprietary installations and the room in which they're installed. So for all of the benefits that these tools can provide, you are still relying on a cloud-based service. Now, I'm sure security has been taken into consideration, and I'm not trying to cast anything onto Jetbuilt's capabilities because it really is a very clever tool. But I'll leave on one more advantage. The fact that this is a text-based, almost like you are texting somebody on the phone, that was the example that we saw Paul give. There's a lot of people that don't want to talk to a human. I raised 2 millennials, and they don't really want to spend a lot of time talking to a human if they don't have to. They're more than happy to scan a barcode and then start chatting with something on the phone or somebody they don't know. It's giving them answers, so why not? So I think there's more positives than negatives, so long as they've really done a good job in training this LLM or other source of information for the AI.
Well, and if I could jump in on a couple of things Garth said. First of all, the one thing you said on your first disadvantage that everybody needs to keep in mind about AI in general is it is a tool. It is not a be-all, end-all. It is not a replacement of humanity entirely, despite what dystopian sci-fi would tell us yet. But it's a tool. And if we leverage the tool properly, it could be a wild benefit. Now, I know Jetbuilt is aiming at integrators. They want, your integrator to, whoever's integrator to buy it and use it for their customers. But if you have an organization like mine that's like all over the world or all over the country or whatever, you're not going to have a single integrator. And that's why I was saying I hope they offer a version for customers where we can, work with our various integrators, whether they're Jetbuilt folk or not. I'd be willing to sit here and upload my manuals and my drawings into something that would help my technicians take care of my estate. But to your other point on security, yeah, let's look at an on-prem version. Cloud's great for the majority of your customers. Sometimes customers won't let you touch the cloud. So if there's a small-scale tool version that could be given to large enterprises with large, vast estates that could live on-prem behind a firewall or what have you, that would be amazing. Jetbuilt or competitors, I hope you're taking notes.
Yeah, actually, Garth even made me think of something, Tim. He's talking about a workflow that's already out there that's kind of a shadow IT. I'm in a rental place right now. My TV's not working. What am I going to do? I'm going to Google, jump on YouTube, watch a video, start hitting buttons myself and doing this. So in some ways, you could say what Jetbuilt is doing with Jetbot is putting some guardrails on a shadow IT workflow that's probably there right now. I mean, it might be a stretch of the terms, but the way Garth was describing his millennials, I've got millennials too. That's exactly what they're doing. They learn by YouTube, right?
I just did a story in the newscast at the top about Google's Gemini being able to answer the phone and make calls for you and take notes. And I'm like, I never have to talk to a single human being again. That would be fantastic. So yeah, I'm with Garth and his millennials. So
that's because we're exennials, Tim. We're on the cusp.
I am not, and we are not exennials.
We're the same age. We're close enough.
We are, but we're not exennials. We are so far from being men.
We're Gen X.
We are solidly in Gen X. I am terribly sorry to say. And Mr. Neto, because he's the same age as we are. I don't care what anybody says.
We scare everyone else. There's a Gen X meme absolutely. I saw out there where like millennials. Like, how do they deal with everyone? And it gets to Gen X, and it just said, leave them alone.
Leave them alone. All right. Second story. Forrester has given out a new report that identifies Zoom, Google, Cisco, and Microsoft as the leading UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service platforms in 2025. These vendors scored, that's the point here, highly across core areas like reliability, resilience, integration, and AI-enhanced collaboration. Zoom was praised for its AI-driven meeting tools and robust backup options, includes satellite failover, while Google is noted for its seamless blending of modalities like voice, chat, and video with real-time translation and transcriptions. They're all kind of working on that as well. Craig, I'm going to start with you on this. Not for nothing, but Craig is an analyst. He writes for UC Today, where this story originally came from. What are some things that this, not that Forrester missed, but maybe the industry is missing, or Forrester missed? Like what is it? What's either some companies that maybe they should have taken a look at and given better scores to, or what are some diamonds in the rough that people need to take a second look at?
Great question. Let me first give kudos to Forrester, because the one thing they do in this report, and you can go to any one of these vendors that are probably using this as a marketing piece and download and take a look at it. They spell out what their methodology is, and they show you how they rank everyone. So what you can do is, if I don't agree with what they're saying about meeting experience and the score they gave Cisco or Zoom, I can adjust on my own. So as a buyer of these technologies, I can go ahead and adjust that. But with that said, you're right. It's the four horsemen. They're always up in the lead. There's Zoom, Cisco, Microsoft, and Google.
And really quickly, at the end, I'm going to give you Tim's own personal opinion about one of these four. But that's
okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just came from a Zoom analyst event called Zoom Perspectives, and it's super impressive. But you're asking about who else to be looking at in these spaces. Well, the first thing I'm going to say about the four horsemen is I actually am seeing some great positive momentum around Google and the Google Meet experience. Now, the problem in the past is it's this small little tiny thing in this huge company and didn't get the feature set and the attention that it did. But I'm seeing this work really well more and more for small to mid-sized businesses, digital-first businesses as well. And as much as Microsoft has a huge market share, I think Google is actually doing something unique and interesting there, and I think they are grabbing some new customers. So I would just keep an eye on them. But let's move further on. They call the next section strong performers, and they have RingCentral and 8x8 there. I think RingCentral is the one that, like you said, is not being given enough credit here. RingCentral comes at this as an audio-first, phone-first provider. They recently incorporated their own CCaaS solution as well, going back to contact center as a solution. But it plays well with their UCaaS solution because it's the same underlying technology. And again, most companies live and die by the phone. Their customers call them. That's their sales lead engine for a lot of people. And to be able to think about it from that call workflow is RingCentral's superpower. And I think they're doing great things in terms of they've got a new executive who's leading their video implementation. Kristen Koenig, she was doing with the events, but now she's taking over all the video. They're doubling down on their room experience as well, too, so for group environments as well, and the partnerships they're having with Logi and Poly. So they're one to keep out, and I don't think you should rule them out. And then let me give you one more, because it's really interesting data. In that lower contender section, Zoho's there, who I like, by the way, Dialpad, GoTo. GoTo is there. Do you know GoTo has the largest market share in a really unique niche? They have the largest market share in auto dealerships. They found a sweet spot with these auto dealerships.
Why?
You know what? They did customize some of their product in some ways. I don't know the features specifically, but it is most of the product. But it winds up, again, GoTo has a very strong audio story, phone, and audio. I'm leaning into Pro AV for a second. I'm sorry. Phone. And they found that, and they put together a great go-to-market momentum, great support in what they're doing in terms of that. Because what they'd work really well is think of most, if you think about how most of these auto dealerships are working, they might have one or two locations, which is perfect for them. I want to make sure I can have all my phone services unified. I want to make sure I have a virtual agent that can give it, route calls between 2 or 3 locations. I don't need to do a lot of out of customer calls. I don't need to go out on video calls to that. I'm probably working within my own business or with the mothership, Chevy, Ford, things like that.
Yeah.
So they really honed in their value proposition for that, and they're doing really well there. So those are two that really caught my eye.
Garth, when you take a look at, I like that Four Horsemen thing, but you look at the Four Horsemen, how did we get here? Because 10 years ago, Google was still messing around with Google Plus, their short-lived social media platform, which, just for the record, is what gave rise eventually to Google Meet, because by way of the video chatting platform. How did we get here with these four companies that seem to be, at least from my perspective, very, very different?
In a word, the pandemic. Right? Because Before the pandemic, I'll give you an example. At my former company, we were using Ring Central, right? Because we needed that uniform platform, that unified platform for telephone communications. That appliance that sits at your desk that looks like a telephone, but it really isn't. It's just a device that has a bunch of ones and zeros going through it. So Ring Central was how we were unifying communications within our company that had folks in the office and remote folks like myself. And so this was the platform we were using. We would eventually switch over to 8x8, to Craig's example. It's a good example. It's a good platform when it's a communications, a telephone first platform. Our tech support team lives and dies on that platform to help customers through their challenges, their questions, and what have you. But the four horsemen, how did we get there? It was the pandemic, right? The last time I was on this program, Don and I were chatting about the death of Skype. And back then we were trying to get our company, we were trying to get a vendor on Teams, and it was a challenge because they were using Skype. Because we jumped very quickly and very immediately into the video conferencing tool, Teams became very significant because, as Craig said, there's a tremendous amount of market share for Microsoft products in the corporate space. Then Zoom jumped to the lead because they had a great interface, a really good tool, and today it's a very good looking platform when you're doing video conferencing. Now, as a guy who's recently become a free agent, I can tell you which one is a lot easier to set up on your home computer. If you don't have that IT department and you don't have that whole Microsoft backbone, Zoom was a breeze to put into place. It's very easy to use and very good controls. I could switch cameras here if I wanted to, if I was on Zoom, for example, with just a keystroke, which is great if that's what you want to do. And the other two came along for the ride as well, because not everybody wants a Microsoft platform of Word, Excel, and what have you. Google Docs, again, getting back to the unified communication, Google Docs allows you to then store everything in there and have this platform if you are a digital first company or agency and you want to go with that. So I think the other question it comes down to, not just how did we get here, but when we bring this back to an AV audience as we are, which one is the easiest one to integrate for the unified communications and meetings in our offices and our schools, right? So in that environment, does 8x8 have a place in that kind of meeting environment? Not really, but Google and Teams and Microsoft have an opportunity there. So which one's easier to integrate? Do you want to have licenses for all of these? Or are we going to have a bring your own meeting environment, or the, here's a new acronym for you, the UTGWP, use the gear we provided environment. And that is how, for AV, that's how we're going to have to kind of solve this challenge.
Okay, now you give me more acronyms. Don, Garth just kind of asked the question I was going to ask: is which one is easier to not just deploy, but connect and support?
That's like asking what's the best dog. Well, they're all good in their own way. It depends.
Don't say it depends. They're not saying it depends.
Yeah, well, it does, though. What's best for someone that's a small business or an entrepreneur or someone working from home or someone on vacay is going to be different from someone in a mid-sized company or a government agency or, God help you, a giant multinational with sites all over the world. It all depends. If I have 800 IT guys at my beck and call and a corporate license with one of the big names that begins with an M and ends with a soft, then that's going to be my preferred use, But if it's just Dawn on her own at home trying to do something for funsies, I might use Google because it's free and I already have Gmail. I might use GoTo or Zoom or, one of these other. It depends. It really does. And easy is subjective. So what's easy for me as an AV pro, but as, sometimes a bit of a dilettante, is entirely different from someone who lives and breathes in the bolts and nuts and in the guts of things, which is entirely different from grandma sitting at home trying to talk to the grandkids, to whom FaceTime is a challenge, even though there's a giant button that says talk. So there is no one answer, man. It is what it is.
What I love is that Dawn is an AV person. She's got that lighting effect now she put in place so that it emphasizes every time she has a great answer, and it goes right to her. I mean, that is an AV pro at work, man. I can't even do that.
She's a lighting programmer and designer. You just didn't know that. So I told you I'd give you Tim's 2 cents. I mentioned Google Hangouts, which is the precursor to their UC platform. I love Google. I think they do a lot of good things. I hate their platform. It is my least favorite. And I'm sorry, Dawn. It does not depend when it comes to that one. Yes, if you are on your own, or if it's, my kid's school or whatever, certainly it's a fine platform. But I've got a couple of dear friends that they work for a company, and every time that they want to have a meeting, if I try to send them the invite before they do, because I just there's something. It's the interface. It's sometimes the audio is not great. I have not had good experiences. How about that? So.
And it's ironic because taking off my wannabe millennial hat and putting on my old as the hills hat, for some of us that have been around since the long, long ago in the before times, I remember a day when this show was recorded on Google Hangouts or one of the predecessors of what you're now complaining about. But hey, everybody's got what's good for them, and not just what's good for them in this situation, but what's good for them at the time. And at the time, that was the best dang thing out there. Nowadays, meh,
We're leaning into this generation idea. Let's not lose sight of this. We are at the point that Gen Z, which is up to about 28 years old, is actually getting into the workforce and potentially being some of these decision makers around what platforms to do, especially for small businesses that might want to get somebody who's technically forward. And I think Google did a great job of seeding the education system. My kids work in Docs and Sheets. My kids do Google Meets. It's kind of like what Apple did a couple of generations before getting the apples into into the education system. So
that's why I still use an Apple, dude.
I still think we're probably at a point also that we're going to start seeing generational preferences play out. And this is potentially why I'm seeing an increase in presence of Google when I'm talking.
I will be fascinated to watch that, because you're right. Gen Z is getting to some decision making. Is certainly the founders that are Gen Zers. Those are their decisions. But the other part of that, and I do not want to get too deep into this generational thing, there is something generational about, Garth mentioned it, where his millennial kids don't want to talk to anybody. Gen Z doesn't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to text anybody.
And the same thing also.
Social media, but very much less, than us yahoos.
During the pandemic also, Garth made a great point too. Zoom, my kids were thrown on, they might have had Google, but they were also thrown on Zoom meetings from home for their classrooms and hybrid learning, remote learning. Gosh darn, my mom learned Zoom during the pandemic because that's the only way she could talk to her grandkids. So,
and Zoom is the noun.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Well, Zoom's a noun, Google's a noun. You know which one isn't a noun? Microsoft, and that's all I'm going to say. Well, it is, but I can't repeat what the definition of it because it's
we're not using 4-letter nouns now.
I think the noun thing, though, might explain why the cars companies like GoTo so much, because they're cars. They want you to go to places. So they're going to use that for their platform.
There you go.
Sure.
All right, let's stick with that. Dawn Mead, thank you so much, ma'am. We can't say where you work, but we can tell people where to find you.
You can find me on all the socials at AVDawn or Dawn Mead. And if you happen to catch me at a trade show or a visit a vendor event, wave at me. Stop and say hey.
Yeah, absolutely. She's always good for a chat. Mr. Garth Lobin, thank you, sir. How do people connect with you?
I'm a free agent now, so you can connect me any way you possibly can using GC Lobin on all the socials, including LinkedIn. Look for me there. I have more than enough time to reach back to you.
All right. Craig Durr, thank you, sir. You and I are both remote this week, but I appreciate your time and hanging out. How do people connect with you or Collab Collective?
Very similar. It is at Craig Durr at all the socials, and it's collab-collective also there as well. You can go to our website. We have a lot of free resources available, blog posts, updates. So hopefully people can find value in the stuff we're putting out there.
And Craig just hit 10,000 connections, followers on LinkedIn. So that was really cool. Good to see you.
Well, thank you. That was that. I wanted to share that, but how do you modestly share something like that? I don't know.
You let me do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Humble brag, dude. Humble brag.
Yep.
It's pretty exciting though.
Yeah, it was really exciting. Really, really exciting. Thank you guys so much. My name is Tim Albright. Do not follow me anywhere on the socials. If you want to read something that I write that has nothing to do with technology, like very, very on the edge, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Tim Albright. I think it's at TD Albright. Anyhow, but go by the website, please, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others, including a brand new ed tech. It's our first one since coming back from Orlando, and Infocom. The gang kind of gathers around and actually talks about the importance of community for the higher ed segment. You can check that out. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube and you don't want to see me anymore, you can go listen to us on wherever you get your podcast. And if you're listening to us and you want to see Dawn's fantastic light show, you can go watch it on YouTube. But either way, you can go either direction. But go by the website, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hi, this is Jennifer Goodyear
and Erica Carroll
from the Women in AV podcast, where we are encouraged by the incredible stories of women in AV.
Listen in on fun, empowering conversations as we chat with inspiring women, breaking barriers and creating their own path in the industry.
Check out Women in AV on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.